static. You just read up the content. You cannot interact much with it. Yeah. So the the key points for comparison involve interactivity, the integration, and the authentication. In many times for a website, you will not need to authenticate to be able to access the content. For example, Wikipedia.org, you don't need to log in or to sign up to be able to access the content. Yeah, just go and look it up, right? But for Facebook or Instagram, you need to log in, right? Exactly, to be able to access the content of that web application. So these are the criteria for comparison between a web app and a website. So when one says he's a web developer, it's he more develops applications that are being hosted on the web browser. Yeah. So having understood that, now let's see what is the evolution of web development. How has it evolved over the years? So we're saying web development has evolved from just static pages with static content to dynamically generated content via programs running on web servers. Now, this transformation has aroused from the increasing human need to publish on the web, developing easier, stable, powerful, and smarter ways to develop web applications. What we're saying here is that web development has evolved from just generating static pages. If you looked up the first website that was created by, I can't remember his name, I think Marcus Brownlee or something like that, I don't remember exactly. In the 19s, in 19 something, very long time ago, the web page that was created was simply static, just plain HTML. Plain HTML. But over the years, web development has evolved to more dynamic contents that are being created or generated based on the user's interactivity with the web app. Exactly. Moving on, how does the web works? Have you wondered how you're able to view content on your mobile phone or your computer when you simply look up a certain IP address or a certain URL or a certain
I
how does that work?
I actually wanted him to talk
A
about
browser client, be it your
his life
phone,
as a
your
web
laptop,
developer, what it
whatever
takes to be a
you're
web
using to access
developer,
the
his
website,
challenges,
on
but
the internet,
I guess he didn't fully
sends a
understand me.
request to web server. So it sends that IP address to the web server. That's a web server, all right, recognizes that IP address. Then it knows, okay, it needs to fetch content for that IP address, all right. Then it returns the resources for that IP address and sends it back to your web browser, which you're able to see on your phone or your laptop. So every link you see, google.com, facebook.com, whatever, translate into a certain IP address that is it is hard to remember. It's just numbers. You probably see M192.068 blah blah blah, stuff like that. Yeah, those are actually what your links translate into, that the web server is able to understand that okay, it is to bring in these resources. But then you're able to see readable links like google.com. And basically so that it can be readable by a common person and it can be remembered by a common person. But in essence, the computer translates that into IP addresses, 192.168 blah blah, and every web and every website has a unique IP address. Okay. Now the resources that this web server returns to you are basically what you see on your phone or your laptop. They include HTML file, the CSS, the JavaScript, the PHP or whatever code or programs that was used to write up the content of the website. So that is basically how the web works. I hope everyone is able to understand this simple logic about how the web works. At least next time when you look up a certain URL, you understand, okay, what is happening behind the scenes that makes you able to see the content on your phone or your laptop. Okay, moving on. The website or app structure. So,
Hey Tiga,
of course,
I don't know how
this
it
basically
happened,
involves
but
HTML
I've
files.
lost his number again.
These HTML files may contain
My
client-side
assistant.
scripting like JavaScript. But these HTML files, as we said earlier, simply contain the content or simply text, images, or whatever, and they link to styles, which is our CSS, and then um, JavaScript code, basically that helps you integrate some functionality to the content that you see on your web page. All right. So these HTML files includes image files, object files such as your sound, video, and server-side scripts that are written with JavaScript, PHP, ASP.NET, or whatever. So these server-side scripts connects with your database. Yeah, it basically connects your database and are able to bring and render your resources to the web browser that you're able to access. Okay, I hope all of this is not looking cumbersome for many persons here. Hoping so. We'll take questions at the end of the session and we'll be able to divulge further. Moving on, so a simple website structure. Yeah, you go and you look up a certain URL, a certain link, like google.com, whatever. Usually, that simple web page links you to other web pages, right? Saying links to other web pages. From your home page, you move on to the About Us page, the Contact Us page, the sign up page, login page. Yeah, that's a simple website structure. It all starts from the home page, which is more like the index page that a browser recognizes when you look up a certain URL, the index page. Yeah, and from that index page, it then links up to other pages on that same domain. Yeah. Okay, moving on. So what is the basic web development process? The basic web development process. So it involves first creating your HTML files, which you then test them locally to ensure that they work on your local computer first. From then on, you then upload to the web server so that it is accessible by everyone across the world. Yeah, upload to the web server so it's accessible to everyone across the world. Now this and how do you upload your HTML files? Yeah, so there's a transfer protocol called FTP. It's called File Transfer Protocol. It's how you're able to upload your resources so that it's available, it's accessible by everyone across the world. Yeah. So then you test it on the web server to ensure that it is functional as you intend for it to be. Yeah. Moving on. So you might wonder, there are very many web browsers. You have Chrome, you have Firefox, you have Safari for the iPhone users, you have Opera Mini, you have Brave, UC browser, and so many as that. So the question is, why are there so many and why are there so many browsers? I don't know if anyone has ever built a web application, so a web site. You would observe that if you test it on different browsers, you will see some disparities. If you test it on Chrome, you see it appearing in a certain format that, okay, this is how you built it, okay, fine. But if you test it on, say, Safari or Firefox, you see a difference. Perhaps in how the text is rendered, in color, or in some certain tags. For example, if you put the select tag, there's a way Safari renders your select options different from how Chrome or Mozilla would render your select options. Yeah. So basically, the point is that the original intention behind the HTML is to describe meaning and not formatting. Meaning and not formatting. It is your Chrome, it is your browser that basically formats it the way it wants to be. But your HTML basically provides meaning. Okay, this is what this particular content is for. So what this particular content, it basically describes that particular content. Then your browser basically formats that content, right? So every browser has its own tags. Every browser can vary in how it displays data. You observe some disparity if you check the website on Chrome and if you check the website on Safari or Mozilla, you observe some disparity. But then, in spite of the disparity, there is still a very close similarity because, of course, as much as browsers input their own formatting, they try not to make it so much different, for that the content is not being obscured. Yeah, exactly. That. Yeah. Okay, so there are several web browsers. There's Brave, Opera Mini, Safari, Google Chrome, and many as that. Please now understand why there are so many web browsers. Okay. So moving on, okay, we said that it is almost impossible or rather difficult to design a web page that looks exactly the same on all browsers. It's rather difficult, alright, because of the disparity in how the browser would render or display the data and format the HTML content. But you can design for the safest HTML standard. You can test on most current versions of browsers. You can design for currency web standards. Okay, that should be current. So, design for current web standards regardless of browser support. What here is implying is that yes, you understand that yes, browsers can and there can be disparity in how they render certain content. Yes, but at least try to strike a balance so that your web page or your website looks the same or almost the same on any browser it's accessed with. Yeah, that's basically what here is saying. So that it looks almost the same on any browser it's been accessed. So the way you can achieve this by designing for the safest HTML standard, using testing on the current versions of browsers, and also designing current web standards regardless of browser support. Okay. So what are some dynamic web technologies that are being used to create web applications? We have JavaScript, there's PHP, there's ASP has that, but these are the most common ones, or the most popular ones in 2022, should I say? Yeah, JavaScript, PHP. So, what are some dynamic web technologies that are being used to create Rust, web application, Rails, and more? Okay. So if you want to get into web tech, web development, you can simply pick any of these languages, any of these programming languages, and you'll be able to build code club. Will be tutoring primarily on JavaScript. Yeah, primarily on JavaScript for the primary web programming language. Okay. So what are some web frameworks? There are several frameworks that are being used to create web applications. Basically, more and more web frameworks, is being done using pre-existing frameworks such as content management system and blog engines. With a framework, you're able to write less, develop fast, and do more easier development. So what's a web framework? A web framework is basically a tool that is built on a programming language that helps you to quickly, and very fast build up your web app and very quickly. All right. I'm sure most of us will have been familiar with some web frameworks, which you will see here, including Express, that's for the backend anyway, React, Vue, Angular. Then on the backend we have Node, we have Express, PHP. Yeah, frameworks that have been built on PHP, instead of Laravel, Rails. Yeah, exactly. So these are web frameworks that you will be exposed or you will eventually come in contact with as you journey through web development. So that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you've been able to at least been apprised or been enlightened about web development. You have been introduced to web development and you understand how the web works. I'm sure by now you should be interested and even further. So some hands raised up. Fine. Yeah, okay, many hands raised up. Chibueze, I see your hand up. Yes. Is your hand still up? Chibueze?
Okay, good evening. Nice work. True. But it does not only create HTML pages, it also creates applications like JSON pages or images. You can send out applications or images, JPEGs. And you also talk about FTP. Aside using FTP, there's also some other better ways to use using system version control, all those GitHub and GitHub Action, which helps to automate uploading your file to the web server. FTP in the modern economy is kind of slow and inconsistent. It gives error, especially when you're working with a bad network like the ones we have in Nigeria. That's pretty much what I'm to say.
Okay, okay, Chibueze, yeah, thank you. You're correct. You're correct. Yes, back in now, okay, it's something I did not chip in during my session. Now, there are two ways of developing your applications. There's what is called CSR, client side rendering. I'm sure you must be familiar with that, and then server side rendering, of course. Yeah. So, and whichever approach you choose to develop your application, your web app, if it were on the if it's server side rendering, of course, to create your HTML files for you and render them to the to the front end for you. But if you're to take the CSR approach, client side rendering, you should understand that these web pages are being created. These pages are being created on the back end, basically. Yeah. So when we that's for you to look up or we definitely dive further about different approach to building web applications, basically. And yes, you talked about other file transfer protocols. Yes, they're correct. Git and Git is one way of transferring files to the server. That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. So thanks for that, Chibuze. Thanks for that. So, are there any more questions or any more? Okay, I'm just seeing this. Okay, are there any more questions or any more additions? Benita, do you want to add anything?
Okay, I was following. I've actually really learned a lot because I don't know that much about web development, but I've actually really learned a lot. But on just, for instance, if now that I want to transition into web dev, for instance, can you just give me like a brief transitioning process, how like, especially from your own experience, how you started and where you ended? Can you just give me a brief summary of that? How I want to go about web development?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So, getting into web development now, one thing you should know is that there are sort of different, do I say, approaches or different parts of web development. There's the front end, there's the back end, and then there are those who do both roles full stack. Yeah. So on the front end, you are building what the user sees, basically. You're building what the user sees. For the back end, you're building web server. Whatever happens in the backside, basically behind the scenes, that's the back end. So getting into web development, you can you can pick an approach. You want to get to the front end first, or do you want to just dive straight to the back end? Although that's hardly advisable, just dive straight to the back end. So starting off, you most likely pick up the front end first. You learn HTML, learn CSS, and you learn JavaScript. That's because that's the basic. Those are the three basic technologies or programming languages for the web: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. However long it takes you to learn those three. Okay. After learning those three languages, then you can now pick up web frameworks that are built on JavaScript. So that's React, that's Vue, or Angular, which is actually an old one though. But the most common ones are React and Vue. Yeah. So once you're able to learn frameworks, React and Vue, definitely you're good for the front end. You're able to build applications for the front end, basically. Then from there, you can try to transition also to the back end too, so as to be able to work on the backside to have an exposure of what happens behind the scenes. Then you pick up languages like Node. You can pick up Express, which is built on Node. There are other languages like PHP, Laravel, that is also built on PHP. Or whatever backend technology, basically Python as well, or or any other in backend and technology that is used to build them web servers, basically. Yeah, so it starts off with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then React or Vue, then the backend, which is Node or Express, PHP or Laravel, Python, like that. So that's the basic approach. That's the approach to getting into web development. It's summarized into these few sentences, but then that's a lot of time that is being wrapped up. That's a lot of time. Because however long it takes you to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then React, then the backend technologies as well.
Okay, that's great. So, is it possible to start off with the backend without knowledge of the JavaScript frameworks? If I just have knowledge of HTML, CSS, and vanilla JS, can I from there transition into learning Node.js instead of React and Vue?
Yes, but basically, to ideally for you to be able to work on the back side, you understand what happens on the front side, right? Yeah, so you understand, okay, what is happening in the front end. So ideally, you can just learn HTML, CSS, know a little bit of JavaScript, then from then on transition to the back end. That's also acceptable. Yes, that's acceptable. Learn a little bit of HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, then move on to the back end. Yeah, that's also acceptable.
Okay, so what were some of your biggest challenges in becoming a web developer?
Okay, so I would say I struggle with consistency at first. I struggle with consistency because I was self-taught. Of course, there are many online resources that one can pick up and help him to and learn web development. So I have to struggle with consistency, but that's a common problem with almost everyone anyway. Self-learning is really difficult when you have when you don't have many persons around you who are also doing the same thing. Yeah, so struggle with consistency at first, but this of course takes a little while. It's meant to like perk your interests, meant to perk your interest in web development, in what you are learning basically. Once you're able to solidify that interest, then it becomes easier to progress in your learning process. All right. So that's one challenge that I struggle with at first, consistency. Then, now the online resources the resources are readily available online. There are so many resources that one can easily look up and easily learn web development. There's Fit Code Camp. There's Udemy if you're willing to pay for a course, uh, and many other. There's also YouTube. Yeah, and many other resources like that. Like I can easily help you to learn web development. Yeah. So, what are the challenges first? Well, I think there are a few I can mention for now. Yeah. So, of course, everyone is different. Of course, everyone has unique challenges according to. Everyone has unique challenges. So, but whatever challenges you face, I'm sure you'll certainly find a way to surmount those challenges. So long you have solidified your interest in what you want to learn.
Okay, I think the only thing I want to know now is how long did it take you to get to where you are now from the beginning of your learning journey?
Okay, how long has it taken me? Okay, so I can say I am 3 years into my career as a web developer, software developer. I started to learn in 2019, but then I actually started to count my career from like 2020, any of 2020. Yeah, because 2019 was when I started to learn. Yes, but then I struggled with consistency at the time. But I cannot say I actually started to. I was actually involved fully, but then it took a while before I could then say, okay, yes, this I've solidified my interest. This is what I'm doing, and yes, I can progress further. So I would say 3 years into my career so far.
Okay, that's all I have to ask.
Okay, thanks for the question, Benita. Anyone else has any questions or any additions? John, Samuel, Don. Okay, if there are no questions or additions, I want to believe that we have all been able to at least learn something, no matter how little, from this session today. Yeah, personally, I wanted to make the session brief, not take too much time. I know it's already night and everyone certainly has other responsibilities. Yeah. So, thanks everyone. I'm hoping we're able to learn something from the session today. And in the absence of any other addition, anything further, I'll hand over to Benita to close the session.
Okay. There's just three of us, about five of us, and three of us excluding me and Job. So I guess that's all. Since we have no questions, I think we can. Though I would really like to hear your feedback, though. Samuel, John, Don, I want to hear your feedback about the session.
Wow, it was great. The session and the questions on the web development. Really great. Nice one. Thanks for your wonderful. And you also, Dennis. You're doing a great job. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, okay, Don, you have something to say. You switched off your mic for a second there. Okay, John, please go ahead. It's like we are having network issues. Sorry. So I guess we should all leave the meeting. But if you do have any questions, you can message Job about it. When he gets the time, he'll respond. So I guess that should be all. Okay, John, are you there? Okay, that should be all. Thank you everybody for participating this evening. We can begin to leave the meeting.
All right, so, okay.